Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, dear viewer. It's just me and him. It's me and him, and that's that. That's that for the minute. Bruce and I. I am Bruce. Oh, I am Brew. Anyway, that's another thing altogether. Do you know that drink? Do you have that in New Zealand? I don't know if you do.
I don't know, probably, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's made in
I
Scotland.
prefer French champagne as my tipple. So yeah.
Yeah, but of course, but it's made in Scotland, for gelders, as they say. Well, I don't know where the world is today, but the world's not joining us, Bruce. Bruce, I have seen you have, well, I've seen several things that you've had this week. One of the several things is conniptions with your council again, and seems like your show, your event is really a very hard thing to arrange.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, we've got people who have admitted they have no expertise in this area, but they know enough to stop things happening. It's like, oh, what do you do? It's been very difficult, righty-ho. I'm dealing with people who are operating from a perspective of ignorance, and it's very hard to get around ignorance. You can't educate people in 5 minutes. And there are also people that are so fixated on process rather than outcome. And this is typical of most bureaucrats and politicians. They're interested in the process. The process is the whole thing, regardless of the outcome. They feel that if they've ticked all the boxes, they've done their job, even if the outcome is a disaster. And there's no easy way around that. And I feel this probably actually moves into the area of even RPAS regulation, because these people, they're looking with checklists and things that apply to full-size aviation. They're applying them to children's toys, and they think they're doing a good job because they've got enough checkboxes and ticks and sort of cross-references and things. Oh, we've got rules this good because they're measured by weight and by thickness without any real perception of what the outcome of these rules are. This is a worldwide problem at all levels of bureaucratic administration.
Well, we know no aircraft shall fly until the weight of paperwork exceeds the all-up weight of the aircraft. That is an absolute aviation given. It is impossible for aircraft to fly to at that point. Did I see you say that they didn't want you to fly mini quads at the airfield anymore?
Well, this is another thing. It's the problem you get with people in power is often, if they've got a grudge against someone, then they've got all the power in the world to exercise it with. And I've got a situation here where there is one particular, he's not an elected official, he is a manager within the council structure, and he knows nothing about aviation or regulation. He's got the regulations wrong every time he's tried to interpret them. He feeds the information onto the council, who make decisions based on the information this guy gives them, but he gives them the wrong information. And so he can't even interpret his own rules now, because we got a directive, because I've actually sort of embarrassed him on several occasions by showing that he's completely out of his depth. He's now taken it upon himself to, deal with me using the powers he has available to him. So he has decided unilaterally to misinterpret the rules and forbid us to fly mini quads in the areas. Oh, it's just a nightmare. I knew I took a risk when I wanted to set up this event, because I knew that certain people would get their noses out of joint, and they have, and they're acting exactly as I expected. It's all about grudges and dealing with people. It's us. This is the 21st century. You think people could get over that sort of thing?
Well, you're using the word mini quad all the time, but of course the world views, and it's all been set up to use the term drone for such things. Do you think you're falling victim to the use of the term drone in this case?
No, this is just someone who doesn't want, if he had his way, I'd be off the airfield, wouldn't be allowed to fly there because I've upset him, and whether you call it a drone or an RPAS or a mini quad or a model aircraft, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, we're talking about pretty much the same thing in most cases. I mean, a mini quad has more in common with a model aircraft than with a Phantom 4. It requires skill to fly. It doesn't have GPS. So it is more of a model aircraft than a Phantom 4, which is more of a camera with propellers. And unfortunately, well, regulators don't seem to. This is one of the things they don't appreciate. They're lumping them all together. And even Transport Canada in the current rule set says that if you're flying it recreationally, it's a model aircraft. But if you're flying it for commercial gain, it is a UAV. Well, and they say that's exactly the same craft. So how can they have two definitions based on what you're using it for? It's just
that's the trouble, isn't it? But I mean, there was another thing this week where the word I've forgotten what it is. But I know the other thing that certainly got you very hot under the collar and annoys the billy out of me is the Transport Canada rulings, gigs, or whatever you want to say. I can't believe do you think they actually consulted anybody before they put that out?
Of course they consulted. All these people, they always consult. They just don't listen. I mean, this is, as I say, it's process. The process says you must consult. The process doesn't say you must listen. So they tick the box. We consulted, threw all the consultation things away. We don't care because we've performed that particular step of the process. The outcome has been completely skewed by this. So yeah, we have, they are regulating models which weigh 251 grams as if they were commercial jet airliners, and they cannot seem to draw a distinction. And they say these are risk-based rules. Now, all the regulators love to say, oh, it's all risk-based, but they have a difference in magnitude of 25 times from the 1 kilogram at the bottom to the 25 kilogram at the top. And they're effectively saying these 1 kilogram craft are just as dangerous as the 25 kilogram class drones. No, they're not. Anyone knows there's a huge difference between 1 kg and 25 kg in terms of energy, in terms of mass. But no, they're putting them all together in their risk-based rule assessment. And that's why if you have a 1.1 kilogram foam model and you have a little bit of a crash and you have to hot glue a bit of stuff back on, you've got to write in your logbook the repairs that you've done. I mean, seriously, a logbook for a child's toy and the child, well, no, it's not a child's toy because you've got to be at least 16 if you want to fly a model aircraft that weighs over a kilo. I mean, seriously, and you've got to sit an exam. I mean, I don't know what happened, but when I was a kid, we just went and built the things and flew them in the park. No one ever got killed and there was no issues, but now it's like regulators, do they have nothing else to do?
No, it's insane. It'll really, and I've said it before when we're doing this, it'll ruin everything. It'll ruin everything. No, it'll stop innovation. You need youngsters coming through that will have the next big bright idea. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think also you highlighted that because it was in Canada Shire, they needed de-icing and things like that, which I thought was fantastic.
They've obviously copied it straight out of a pilot's textbook and said, oh, this is just an unmanned aircraft. We'll just apply all the aircraft things to these little foam models. So no one's actually even put any thought into it. It shows how lazy the bureaucrats are. They haven't actually stopped to consider the differences. They've just said, copy, paste, copy, paste. Look at the wonderful job we've done. We've done this much regulation. How busy have we been? Give us a bonus. And as I say, process, not outcome. Dangerous, very, very dangerous attitude.
So I think it's their working day does consist of it's okay, we've got 10,000 words out today, so we're all right, we're sorted out. Do you reckon that's how their day works?
Pretty much, yeah. I think the metric is just by weight and by volume. That's all it is. It's not by quality. Certainly not a quality measure. You know, I mean, the drones will be more regulated than just about anything else. And things drones, you know, it's like, but where's it coming from? What's driving this regulation? Are there commercial interests behind all this, or is it just bureaucrats run amok?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly to a degree there, isn't it? And AirMap have been exposed very, very nicely for their position this 2 weeks ago now. And sadly, and I should have said something at the top, there's been a very sad event in America and in Las Vegas. And it's so condolences and well, you know, all the best to the families. Terrible time. But it does seem on the face of it that that a lump of foam or a 1.2 or 1.4 kilo multi-rotor is more regulated than automatic weapons over there, which is just it's just ridiculous, and in a lot of other places in the world. So yeah, that's swinging all the way back to vested interests having a hand in things, isn't it? That's the NRA over there. Oh, this you could tell it's only us talking. Oh dear.
And the other thing is, you mentioned stifling innovation. You realise that I think in Canada, if it's more than 1 kg, it has to be a manufacturer, an approved manufacturer or an approved device. I don't think you're allowed to build your own anymore. So that's going to just completely. Of course, they say all these rules are exempt if you fly at an MAAC airfield and you're a member of the MAAC, the model flying body. But again, they've simply lost the plot, because the people who are the problem element are not the people who fly traditional model aircraft and these things. These are the people that go and buy a Phantom or a Unique or something online, and they want to fly it and get lovely pictures. There's nothing to see at an MAAC model flying field except grass and fences and people flying models. So these people are basically subject to all these regulations. And look at school, for example. I don't know about Canada, but I know here that in some of the technology classes in secondary schools, they're introducing drones as a technology subject. Even in drama, they're teaching people to fly drones as part of drama, because if you're going to become a worker in the film industry, you have to know about drones, what they can do. Most of your secondary education takes place before you reach the age of 16. So all these kids, because it's not happening at an MAAC model field, they won't be able to use drones. They won't be able to fly drones. So you're stifling their education in Canada. It's like crazy. When that guy Garneau went into space, what happened to his brain?
Well, it's the last. Is it? I don't know if it is. Is it the last kicks of the manned aviation world? And I come from that world, and I'm not that fussed about it all. So, is manned aviation still not getting out of the way, or do you think it will begin to get out of the way?
It will get out of the way. At the moment, the regulators we've got in place come from manned aviation. It's pretty obvious. Most of them are, not that young, so they won't have been. Their career won't have involved unmanned aviation. So they're looking at solely from the perspective of manned aviators. As younger people come into the regulatory framework, I think we're going to see some changes. And here in New Zealand, the Civil Aviation Authority publishes a bi-monthly magazine called Vector, which is quite good. It has all safety information. In this latest edition of Vector, this is what they have to say. Where is it? It is important to remember that RPAS pilots have just as much right to use New Zealand airspace as other aviation participants. I think that's groundbreaking. That's suddenly everything's changed, because suddenly the regulator is acknowledging that these people with their drones, they have as much right as anybody to use the airspace. That really hasn't happened before. Drone flyers have been very second class. We tolerate you in our airspace, sort of thing, But now the aviation regulator is saying these guys have got the same rights as you guys. So I think I mentioned a while ago that the watershed moment in regulation is going to be when the regulations that control manned aviation are modified to take into account the presence of drones. And this is a precursor to that, I think. I think pretty soon we're going to see manned aviation regulations changing, because drones are there, and we'll have to change the regulations to ensure that manned aviators are safe. They do the right thing with drones in their airspace. So it's only a matter of time. Things will change, but talk about exceeding slow.
Well, yes, I suppose so. But then I wonder what that first regulation will be. I wonder if it'll look something like all manned aircraft to stay above 1,000 feet to ensure a 500-foot buffer, or something like that, and drop some of the, say in America, you can fly your helicopter along at low level all day long, as long as you're not going to fly over a small town or anything, where you might come into way of infrastructure. So they have some crazy regulations for helicopter flying there. So they really might, crazy. Handy if you enjoy flying along in the avoid curve, but yeah, no, it's completely legal for them to do that. So I wonder if that would be the first one. If you had to pin the tail on the donkey of which will be the first one they'll move, what do you reckon it'll be?
Well, airspace segregation has got to be the key to safety. And at the moment, of course, most aviation regulators say you can't fly below 500 feet unless you are taking off, landing, or in designated low-flying areas. But it's not really enforced. There's not really much enforcement for that. I sit here and I watch helicopters fly across the lake outside my back door at about 200 feet. And they do it because it's convenient. They're just going a couple of kilometers out. So why waste fuel going up to 500 and coming down again when you can travel at 200 and save yourself over a period of a year, I don't know, maybe $50 worth of fuel. So I think the regulators have to come along and say, convenience is no longer justification for violating the regulations. And they have to start enforcing the regulations we have, and then perhaps change the regulations to even state that, you may not, convenience must always be secondary to safety, whatever. So yeah, it should come in from there. Maybe the 500-foot limit is fine. I mean, most drone stuff, let's face it, most drone stuff can be done, or is best done, below 400 feet. You don't see, when you get up too high, you can't see much, because your cameras have to have a high level of zoom or a narrow field of view. So then things like vibration, that become an issue. Most drones operate best, between 1 and 200 feet. That's generally it. So we've got a huge amount of vertical separation. It's just that at the moment, the way the regulations are drafted, if an aircraft and a drone come into conflict below 500 feet, it's always going to be the drone operator's fault, because drone operators must always give way to manned aircraft. And so the burden of responsibility has to be changed a little bit there. It has to be shared, not just falling solely on the shoulders of the drone operator.
So New Zealand's led the way then by mentioning it in their magazine. It's everybody's air.
Well, yeah.
Well, I suppose
they have effectively. Yeah.
that extends down to that 10-year-old boy as well, then, doesn't it? Really, that the child that's flying, he's got just as much. Right? I'm a bit lost as to where the age ideas. We're circling back a bit, aren't we? But I am a bit lost as to where age suddenly becomes the defining factor, because when you are 10, you crash away until you don't, and then at that point, you are just as good in a lot of ways, and probably better than some of the old duffers down at the model field anyway. As soon as you get out of that crashing habit, my 13-year-old son Dan, he is a better and safer model aircraft driver than me. He tells me
right.
off quite frequently. So
if you look at driver's licenses for comparison, here in New Zealand, once you reach, I think it's 70, you've got to sit a test every year, because they realise that your cognitive abilities and your reaction times start decaying, getting bad. There's no such thing in the drone regulations, though. So hang on, we've already acknowledged that there are cognitive and performance issues when you reach a certain age. So if we're going to put a lower age limit in because the regulators feel it's important, what's happened to the top end? I mean, old people fly drones too.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because that was what is it in the airline pilots world, isn't it? 60. I'll have to Google quickly when things start changing. I haven't got time to do that, I suppose. But yes, that would be that would put the cat amongst the pigeons, especially if we refer back to Colin Snow's survey of who were operating the drones in commercial business, isn't it? And I was amazed. He said it was mostly old duffers. That's what his survey said. Click back a couple of episodes of this, dear viewer, to see him talking about that, because that would wipe out. You really wouldn't want to start your drone business at age 55, would you? If at age 60 you couldn't do it anymore.
No, exactly. I mean, I know that. Look, it was where was it? A 9-year-old won a big drone race somewhere recently, and it shows you young people, their eye-hand coordination, maybe their judgment skills may not be as good when it comes to deciding, is this safe or is this not? But if you've got them with us, you've educated them and they have a decent rule set, they're old enough to work out. I mean, we let them ride on the roads on bikes, right? Bicycles, ride on the road, 9-year-old, no problems. There's cars, there's all sorts of hazards, and they could pose a hazard to other people. Yeah, they're skilled and aware enough to do that, but we can't let them fly a toy. Come on, something seriously out of whack in this equation.
Well, I suppose people will be thinking, why on earth you would what? Yeah, and again, I'm circling just a bit of a spinning argument, isn't it, really? But why on earth talk about this? But I think it's important, and it's these sort of little freedoms being taken away at different levels. I think, again, in Canada there was no aerobatics, was there? And then the speeds were ridiculous as well. So it's these little freedoms going left, right, and centre that will end up with something that is really not all that practical for anybody, and you won't be training prospective drone pilots. But anyway, let's stop ranting about circular arguments here. I saw something today which I thought, oh, this is possibly the first drone competition that I wouldn't mind setting a team up for. And then I looked again and I thought, maybe not. I don't know if you saw it at all today, but the Pacific Drone Challenge, Silicon Valley to Japan, a distance of 4,500 miles or 7,442 kilometers, 242 kilometers, sorry, to 7,242. It's got 2 entrants and they're both a bit pie in the sky. But I'll tell you what it made me think, Bruce. It made me think we got to have a Southern Hemisphere version. I wonder how far it is to Bruce's house. And from my house to your house, it's 11,554 kilometres. That's a decent number, isn't it? And I'll tell you what, and I'll tell you the real problem I had with the Pacific Drone Challenges is they've trademarked that thing, and it's even in the description or the frequently asked questions. They're saying, no, we've trademarked the event's name, so no one else can do that. Like, run the event. So that immediately put me off it already. So what do you reckon? Should we try and fly something around to you? That would be a better challenge, and then I wouldn't have to go anywhere.
I'm sorry, Gary, but you've overlooked one very important thing. I don't think anywhere in the world are you allowed to fly beyond visual line of sight without very special permissions. And unless you can see all the way to New Zealand, we're buggered.
You'd be very surprised at how powerful these are. You really would. You'd be very,
That's
very
what I mean.
surprised.
the regulations again are stifling innovation. But yeah, I mean it's
But
interesting.
I think you'd be sorry after you. You think you go again, and I'll run
No,
back.
where you go?
Well,
Go on, where you going?
I was just going to say, if we turned right a little bit round the bottom of Australia, between you and I, it's only ocean. There's only ocean, and you've got to be able to twist the regulator's arms. And let's face it, if you're doing that sort of thing, you'd be climbing. Because one way to avoid the regulations would be to fly out of them, and the way to fly out of them is to get above 66,000 feet. As soon as you're above 66,000 feet, you're out of the airspace. So
Yes, but it's a long way from 400 to 66,000. They'll ping you on the way up, mate.
oh, Victor there has said, can you fly BV loss over international waters? Well, yeah, that's can you, Victor? That's the thing. But
Looking at
you've
the
heard
way,
my dodge.
yeah, looking at the way what is it? The ASA, who's responsible for international airspace? Is it
ICAO.
ICAO? Yeah, looking at ICAO, I don't think they'd be happy about it, would they? There could be someone on a boat with a helicopter flying around the middle of the Pacific, and you could hit him. I mean, the chances are small, but they're not worried about that. They don't do the probability risk, the calculations. That's nothing. It's all about perception. So there's always that chance. We can't let it happen. Someone could die.
Well, but this supposition is why SR-71s and U-2s and all this sort of thing, and the Russian equivalents, the backfire, the 25s did it. They used to get away with flying over all the international territories because they were not in that country's airspace. So yeah, we should I think we should have a go at that, because that at the end of the day is the platform that's going to win. Is something up high, but thinking about it again, you probably would want to be a bit lower so you could be in the jet streams, because up there's basically no wind, so you've got no assistance. Although that would mean, other than, let's say, if you were to run it the other way, because also that competition is going with the wind, and you a real competition would go the other way, wouldn't it? Go against it.
The other problem is that to make that sort of distance practical, you're going to have a very large, it's going to be a pilotless aircraft. It's not going to be an unmanned aerial vehicle so much as a pilotless aircraft. Then the regulations go through the roof. Yeah, I mean, fighting, it would take you a year just to get past the paperwork before you even started trying anything, I think, at that level. This is the problem. Unless we had some kind of route that we could use that was just basically ticked off and said you can do anything you like here, sort of a corridor that we could use. But then of course they'd want special certified equipment so that you weren't going to stray out of that corridor. So it becomes a bit of a nightmare. I think it's a good idea, but practically, I remember back in, must have been the 1970s or the 80s, Maynard Hill flew a model aircraft from the USA to Ireland, I think it was. And he had none of these problems, right? It was just fire it up, let it go, and had GPS control or something. And it was fantastic. And it landed in Ireland, and everyone was happy, and no one got sued, and no one got taken to jail. But if you tried that these days, I mean, you'd be locked up as a terrorist or whatever. So that kind of level of innovation at an amateur level is just effectively completely killed, I think.
Yeah, I will say hello to everyone in the comments. Above and Beyond, good to see you. Victor said hello already. And Jamie Bignell is from my home village back in the UK. G'day, Jamie. I hope you're doing well. Although he's at university now, clever lad, doing lots of studying and things like that. And you shouldn't follow Jamie. Don't follow Bruce's bad examples. That's all I'll say to you. Yeah, no. But yeah, will you have a look? Google around for that competition. I probably will do something about it tomorrow. But the entries are completely pie in the sky. It's a shame. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Not too far away from where Jamie is the Kinetic. You say big aircraft and all that sort of thing. The Kinetic Zephyr easily has the range and endurance to do it. Flew for 2 solid weeks, and only landed because they'd run out of range time. Okay, it was, I suppose you have here on the other thing, was driving round and round and round in a range in America. But yeah, it could easily do it if it wanted to, and it probably does, because the UK military, I think, have bought half a dozen of them. It's now the Airbus, whatever it is now. And I suspect it's probably doing things like that all the time, and not bothering to write, "Dear Guinness, we have flown for." Probably don't want to reveal it all. So that's I thought was interesting. Send it. Well, the other thing to do would be have an autonomous boat. I suppose we'd avoid all sorts of rules with that
Yeah,
one.
I've contemplated that, and I've seen people have done it, and they have it so you can track it on the internet as it winds its way around all the. It's a really interesting use of technology. But speaking of Airbus, did you see the A380 that lost its entire fan section? And it safely landed, no one died. I'm thinking, wow, I don't think a drone could do that level of damage. So these aircraft are built to such high standards with so much redundancy. It just proves that they're really like an A10. You know, they're pretty bulletproof, aren't they?
Well, funny enough, just before we started, I listened to the RT from that, and there was two things. He was a good pilot because it was cool as a cucumber. Three things: it's cool as a cucumber, and then on the radio, he called it himself Super Mayday. I thought that was very French. Super Mayday, hi Vancouver, we're Super Mayday, and then. When when he landed, when he turned off the end of the runway, said, "Do you want to continue and taxi to parking?" Said, "Yeah, we can continue and taxi to parking." And then the controller says, um, just so you know, the fire engines are picking up bits as you go down the taxiway. So yes, he was taxiing to parking with bits still falling off. So your point is well made. I don't quite understand which bit of that fell off, or the quite how that managed to fall off. It did dink the leading edge a little bit. Oh, super heavy. Thank you, Smooth Virus. I didn't know that. I've learned something now. It was Super Mayday, super heavy. Okay, not just heavy. And Jamie, what did you say? I think with some regulation, they need to find something similar to drones which pose a risk and then follow on from that. Maybe something similar to acid. Ooh, blimey. With respect to recent acid attacks, I suppose that's a fair but
He's obviously
gruesome.
seen my flying. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Jamie makes the most. When I first met him, he was making the most wonderful water-powered rockets, and he is in fact. He's now. You're gonna have to say what you're studying, Jamie, but in the comments. But it's something very cool. But he is the epitome of if you bring in regulations to stop 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds making stuff, then you're going to kill innovation. His water rockets just blew my mind. Well, I went up my brother to the playing field into which we have crashed numerous model airplanes. The groundsman hated us there. One of the chaps was a violin maker. One of the older chaps, and when he used to get hacked off with his, we were tow line gliders. When he used to get hacked, he used to make these beautiful things because he was a violin maker, and he used to fill them with fireworks and blow them up and do all sorts of things to the cricket square. But when I saw Jamie's rocket, I thought, wow, there's not going to be much to that. It's great. What's this kid doing? Yeah, whatever. But then when it went, it's like, oh no, do it again right now. It was very, very, very impressive. He's doing electronic engineering with space sciences. So there we are.
That's when I was a kid, you could buy those little rockets that they were little clear plastic, about this high, and you half fill them with water, and then you pump them up, and then they went up. I don't think you'd probably be able to buy those today. That'd be too dangerous. Nerf might make one, but hard plastic, being hurled into the air like that's probably against all sorts of health and safety regulations these days, isn't it?
I don't know, but I'll get you. What we'll do is I'll get Jamie on next week if he's not down the pub, and he can tell us all about them. But maybe you can post your YouTube channel in the live chat there. Jamie got some great videos. Now he had that old electronic altimeter control parachutes, the whole thing, and that's in multi-stage water rockets. Just wow. So yeah, that's a really good example of innovation and being stifled by crazy regulations. Crazy regulations. Go on, put it in the chat, Jamie, so people can have a look. Now, what else did I see this week? I don't know. Was it FAA restricting flights? Did you see that, Bruce? What did we think about that?
Restricting flights around landmarks and things. And again, it's for terror purposes, isn't it? Because they don't want people. What are you going to do with a drone flying around a landmark? How does that represent a terror threat? I've got no idea how that works. But you notice governments now have this. They don't want you to do something and say national security, terror. Oh, you can't do that without any further explanation, because it's a convenient way to just have ultimate power without having to be accountable. And I don't know, because I've never seen possible threat could a drone represent to Mount McKinley or whatever it is, the president's thing and lots of stuff in the Statue of Liberty. And I see stories in the paper too, the silent threat, terrorists with drones. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sorry, but they've got much better ways to deal with people than flying a little drone around. And I despair that we're now being asked to give up every possible aspect of fun, enjoyment, and learning in the name of security and safety. I mean, who wants to live in a world like that?
Yeah, no, it is a worry, isn't it? And of course, on the back of that, DJI brought out their privacy mode, which they haven't made much of. Is going to put the same sort of restrictions in your flying as if the recent, was it the third 50 meters height or 30 meters height and 50 meters distance or something like that. So that is really gonna. It's really going to destroy. The people are going to be very shocked when they use that mode. And I think also DJI might have made a little bit of a marketing mistake there, because they've shown that there was an issue. They've underlined it. Oh, by the way, now we've got this other mode, because before, what you didn't know we were doing before was so.
Well, now see, they've got a marketing opportunity now. The Osmo. You've seen the Osmo? It's their little stick with the gimbal. They could just make a longer version of that would have more range, more height than the Phantom in its privacy mode. You could go higher, you could go further,
Yes. Right, I've got to put the right YouTube link up for Jamie's channel. And it really is. It is. I wonder if I play a video, can I share a video playing? I wonder. We could have a launcher for. Let's put it in the comments anyway. And then I am going to, as it's just you and me, let us try and let's see if I can share this video. Oh, it's got music. I don't know. Did you hear that, Brucey? All right. Let's see. A screen share. Application window. Oh, that one. Share. Can you see that, Bruce? It's a good job I haven't got a porn history there.
How do they keep the blue touch paper dry?
Yeah. Look at this.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. So right, I'll stop doing that now. So yes, everyone go off and like, subscribe, and do all those other things to Jamie's channel, because it is great, and he's hard work and all that sort of.
How much C4 could you put on the end of that, eh?
Oh my God! Somebody always has to spoil it. Somebody.
We've just seen Kim Jong-un's next rocketry test program.
Yeah, it was one of his really far away. That's what that was.
Yeah. And he'll have thousands of Korean workers scraping the luminous paint off watches to make his warhead. Oh
yes, yes, luminous. But that young Jamie Bignell won't know what you're talking about there. Luminous paint.
No,
watches.
It dates us, doesn't it?
It dates you. My grandparents.
Oh,
grandparents told me about those.
I remember under the bed sheets with my luminous watch when I was a young lad, little knowing that I was irradiating myself. wasn't reading those magazines. I was going to say,
did you give yourself special powers? But let's not go there.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Actually, when you think back, when we were young, life was so damn dangerous. I mean, you had radioactive watches, and you had. I mean, actually, I remember we could actually play with mercury and lead and all these other things that these days, if you get a sniff of it, you're dead in 5 seconds. How did we survive, Gary?
A friend of mine who is now flies air-to-air refueling tankers for a civilian company, weirdly enough. Military, it's a bit of a weird thing. He's a civilian contractor. But anyway, he did a couple of things which I'll recount very quickly. In that, so you mentioned mercury. Do you remember? It's not mercury, but those strips of magnesium, I think it was. And the chemistry teacher used to make you just chop a little bit and put it in a Bunsen burner, and he had it all in a jar. This is an Ilminster for you, Jamie, and Sawnmead. And he took the Bunsen burner and he put it in atop of the jar. And it was like there was a star in the corner of our classroom. It was fantastic. And half the school was evacuated. But I don't think he even got detention or anything like that. So, yes.
These days, the school gets evacuated if you break one of those compact fluorescent tubes because they've got mercury vapor in them. Honestly, that's the kind of thing that goes on. But you're right. We had lithium and sodium, and we used to throw it into buckets of water, and fantastic results. These days, you only ever get to see that on YouTube.
Yes, I suppose they do, or have a computer simulated version of it. So I think we do have to. Obviously, we need to be a little bit safe with things out there, kids. But at the same time, you've got to be allowed to experiment hard, I think. Now, what else did I say? I didn't really have anything else to say. Did you? Did you have any? Did you ever see anything else that caught your eye there, Vic? Vic.
It's been a relatively quiet week, actually, all things considered. There hasn't been an awful lot going on. And I just going back to the Canadian regulations, I wonder why they put a 1 kilogram and not a 1.5 kilogram bottom end on there. Did they deliberately want to capture the phantoms in that death to all people category? It's kind of strange, isn't it? As I say, I wonder if there are commercial pressures involved there, or they're just completely stupid. Probably both.
Well, you wouldn't think they're completely stupid. Again, if you've watched drone stuff this week before, you'll hear my rant about how the chap who let us fly at Farnborough Air Show, which is quite a big deal, in 2010, was from the UK Civil Aviation Authority, and he drove a Spitfire, landed a Spitfire at the show, and that's how the man in charge is Steve. Welcome, Steve. Steve, it's a compact and bijou occasion this evening.
I see. It's quite intimate.
It is. And what this means is I don't have to listen to Bruce anymore. It's great.
And I'll just move over so you got more room.
Yeah, there you go. and it's another one of those evenings where the beard is in command.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following. Oh, all of us with the beards, is that it?
Yes, that's right. So, Steve, I know what I want to ask you. Has there been any more fallout? Because I think it's almost in your wood of the neck from the Blackhawk incident.
Not a peep. Not a peep. Which furthers my initial. Well, I don't know if that's so, but I definitely have. It has the whiff of the fish, that we haven't heard anymore, and news travels in our circles, and there's no further talk of it. It seems sketchy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it had been confirmed. I thought it had been properly confirmed. I thought the pilot had released a statement and all that sort of thing.
That I have not seen that. That's possible, but I have not seen the statement. Do you have a link to it or anything?
Yeah, I better look again. It may have just been a newspaper report that says the pilot said, which, of course,
right. Of course, everyone believes that.
It was on the internet. It must be true.
No, well, yeah, that's true. Everything on the internet is, in fact, true. We do know that. And I did say earlier, Steve, that it's been a horrible week for you guys over there. And well, we won't dwell on it. But
it's just very disconcerting on so many levels. I think I have a really poor internet connection. Everybody's very laggy. I just got off an hour-long conference call, and it was painful. Let me just see what I'm on the fast internet.
No, that is just Bruce and I. We are.
Yeah, I'm just laggy today.
Very, very laggy.
See my legs. They're lagged up to.
It's just. But of course, Bruce can't actually be laggy because he's in the future. So he's actually, he must be the opposite of that. He's ahead of us.
There's always a small delay before the future comes.
Please tell us the lottery numbers.
Yes, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So, no, I have not heard anything more about the Blackhawk incident. Of course, like you said, there's been other news sort of blowing that out of the water anyway. We're all kind of, I mean, as if we weren't shell-shocked enough, with natural disasters and disastrous presidents and, all that sort of stuff. It's just really, it's a messed up time in our world and in our country for sure.
Absolutely. Victor said he saw one article says the Army confirmed, and another one that said the FAA confirmed that the helo hit, but he hasn't seen anything official yet. So
I think the reason perhaps the media haven't run with this is because it's embarrassing for them. I mean, the media hyped this up as if a helicopter hits a drone collide, there will be death. When it happened, and very little the outcome was very minor, I think the media was left with egg on their face. Oh my God, we don't really want to tell anyone about this because we predicted exactly the opposite. So let's just keep it quiet until someone gets killed. That's the kind of thing I feel about it.
Mm. And we mentioned earlier the engine that fell off the Airbus, just to sort of indicate just how robust.
Oh yes.
How robust aircraft truly can be. And what else do you bring us from your part of the world? Can you tell us officially about your liaison with a 3-letter group, or is that still under wraps?
In liaison with a 3-letter group. I know you're fishing for something, but I'm not quite sure what you're fishing for.
Well, let's start with the alphabet, shall we? Let's start with the letter A.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I am a little fried.
That's a fishing reference again there.
Yeah, fish fry. That's right. So yeah, we were able to through our representative on the UASID ARC, Kenji Sugihara, who's just really been a great asset to the DUG, I have to say. He's just a really solid guy and very, very smart, and really, really has done a lot. Both he and Rich Hansen are sitting on this panel and have as the only really operator representatives. Everyone else is more or less, for lack of a better way to put it, in the pay-to-play game, or could be. Large corporations and other agencies. So forged a sort of a nice symbiotic relationship, and created a kind of, not that we didn't have contact before, and not that we didn't say nice things before, and respect for one another, but we kind of had a summit, if you will, of leadership maybe about a week or so ago, to just kind of get just to basically say that we want to more officially work together in advocacy, and to talk further about safety codes and things like that. So it was quite nice. Rich, I think, is really doing a good job in his role as the president, and I guess they're having another VP runoff, a VP election shortly, and there is anti-drone candidate versus the more modernist, dare I say, progressive candidate that we're pushing our members, who also happen to be AMA members, to vote for.
I was going to say there's quite a bit of stranger danger there. There's no stranger to the chap who's running, but he really, in some ways, I see where he's coming from. He wants to completely separate the drone world and model aircraft, but it's also very short-sighted because, well, Bruce will have an opinion on this, but I'm sure within 5 years, a good number of receivers will be with a full autopilot in anyway, if not some sort of GPS and auto leveling and all that sort of thing. And that'll really blur the lines, so people won't use them day to day in their model aircraft. But when they've got their 20,000 hours to Spitfire to stop it crashing, they'll flick the switch. I don't know, where do you think receivers will go, Bruce?
Well, it's already, a lot of receivers now come with gyro stabilizing ability. I mean, a lot of people have it on their aircraft, especially, as you say, more expensive stuff like jets. A lot of them have gyros for even just something simple like rudder on takeoff, because if they're a bit squirrely, the gyro will keep it straight. It's, but I think the purist in the hobby still prefers to actually fly their model. But increasingly, people who fly FPV have flight controllers so that they have return to launch if something goes wrong. The interesting thing is most regulators are not in favour of fully autonomous flight at this stage, certainly at a hobby level. In Canada, it's verboten. And same around the world, you've got to have, they'll grudgingly accept return to home or return to launch as a safety thing, but they're very much against being able to plot waypoints unless you are standing there ready to take over control at any time. So it's one of those thresholds we'll have to cross. It's an ignorance thing. Yeah, but it'll happen.
But not if Mr. Two Gas gets in. It is him, isn't it?
Yeah, that is his name. But I think that, like, he's short-sighted, and I think it would signal a death knell for the organization. I think that their growth is very much dependent upon our community. Unless I'm really mistaken, I do think that the drone community has been something of a boon for the AMA, and so you're kind of leaving it to the diets if you take the drone component away, and that they're sort of like the shakers of the modeling community. You don't have new members, so that's kind of, I think that's all our feelings on it. And listen, you know what, we need them, and I firmly believe that they need us. So let's we're happy to work together as a CBO, partnering CBOs, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I think Victor's got it right in the comments, actually. Yeah, Victor says the AMA would disappear with all the old guys, and he's right. Because here in New Zealand, I think our national model flying body has a membership of about 2,200 people, but the mini quad group on Facebook has over 1,100 people. So yeah, look at that. Look how much that's skewed. I mean, we've got half as many people flying mini quads as is in the organisation. I think mini quads have actually been the saviour of this hobby in many ways, because I know there's a lot of people that the young people just not attracted by balsa wood and nitro motors and that sort of stuff. They want something exciting, and mini quad racing is it, and it's become such a big thing worldwide. It's not a spectator sport like people thought it would be, but it's a participant sport, and it's something that gets people into this hobby, and they may go on to build, fixed wings and all sorts of other aspects of the hobby, but it's what's bringing them in right now. Young people are coming in, and that's revitalized this entire hobby. If the AMA says, oh, we're not having a bean of this, then, well, as Victor says, as the old people age out the top, the membership will collapse, and there won't be an AMA.
Yeah. So, it's interesting you say that about that not being a spectator sport, and I do agree. Have you had a look at the X class racing, the 1,000mm?
Yeah, that's when it starts.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to begin to make sense. But that's still very much I don't know how if you don't really have motor racing in America, do you? You have that thing where you turn left.
Yes, they turn left. Yeah.
Yeah, they just turn left.
It's like tethered racing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Tethered racing.
Sorry,
that's right.
You're lagging on me, but you just made a NASCAR joke, right? Is that the one?
Yes, it's
everybody turning
that's
left.
racing.
Yeah. But that's that's right. So no, but yeah, I mean there is.
No, but sorry, Steve. Where I was going with that was that there's leagues to get to Formula One. That's right. Real racing. You've got to go. You've got to start with go-karts and whatever. And I see that the X class at 1 meter as really being the go-kart racing of, well, perhaps even smaller is the go-kart racing. Then you go to X class and on and on and on. And what I don't see with FPV is I don't see them building that structure. I see lots of little islands of their own championships and things without thinking about having a clear path, so that if somebody gets a bit handy but doesn't have a lot of money, they perhaps then get sponsored. You know, you are 15 or whatever and you're quite good, but you don't have the money to do it, and you know, you can, if you get seen. But anyway, that's
I mean, I've got a I mean, sponsorship takes on many forms, but I've got one of my high school students that I teach is who I knew before he came to my high school, is one of Safety Third's you know, better racers. He's got some sponsorships. He's going to be traveling abroad over the summer on different international races, and you know, he's you know, for a kid it's great. You know, he's kind of like kept in gear. You know, he gets all sorts of stuff, but he's still living at home. You know, it's not like it's paying his bills. You know, and then you look at you know, someone like Zoe Stumbaugh, who is you know, she's just amazing. She's a really great. I think she's a great representative, and I would love to see her, you know, just do really well, because of you know, her whole backstory is really fascinating too. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you know, just sort of fighting off chronic pain and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But you know, I don't think that she's making. You know, I don't know that she's supporting herself doing this, you know, and I don't know anybody that is really.
No, they're not, are they? And,
you know,
but it's just but it's got to go. We spoke about this the other day, but at Farnborough they had a great thing where you could stand in. It was all caged because at Farnborough, funny enough, 75,000 people for the audience all watching the jets. It was all the airliners and jets were still flying, and they were FPV racing in an outdoor cage right next to the international air display. So, so things can coexist, but you could walk through bits of the cage, so you stood underneath. They go through a tunnel, and that was spectacular. So that's with the small things, and that's your crowd. You know, you're in the race, so then that's cool. But on television, nah. But then I am a grumpy old man, so
no, but I mean, even the until the goggle view is true HD and really as immersive as, say, you know, Oculus or something like that, I don't see it, you know, and I think that we learned that last summer at the world, you know, the drone with the Nationals and Governor's Island that was a tricky event, and you know, they had their own issues, and the course was, you know, it was okay, but I think there's a lot of sort of posturing. You know who is you know, I'd saying that nobody's really being supported by drone racing, except for, I don't know if you saw it today, Tim Nilsson, Lumineer and Get FPV. He's gotten some tremendous funding from a VC group to grow his, you know, basically he kind of like took on a partner of sorts that is doing some serious capital.
But that's not the first time big chunks of money have been thrown at it, though, is it?
No, I guess not. I mean, if you look at DRL and things like that, certainly. But I mean, you know, Tim is somebody that I actually knew before Lumineer, and so he's got a nose for it, I gotta say. For, you know, he made a lot of money in ringtones back in the day. He used to be an executive for I want to say, what was it, for a record company, maybe CBS or one of the record companies. Oh no, BMI. I don't know. He kind of really capitalized on the ringtone market as it was blowing up. But
Jamie in the comments have said he's no expert, but how much of a team sport is drone racing? The fun about F1 is all about a team pushing engineering to the limit together. And I guess that's also will be the story of the X class and bigger. And I was speaking to somebody the other day who's they've designed a delivery drone, and he was horrified when I said to him, well, let's see it working. Let's see who it's going to serve, and let's see all your crashes in development. Because if you just arrive to market with a product that's faultless, then I don't believe it. You know, there's got to have been some bumps along the road, and you should tell that story. It's all part of the backstory. So yeah, yeah, it's Formula E they're talking about now in the comments.
Yeah, yeah. I had some friends working on that, and it's a pretty interesting approach. You know, they're kind of small, as I suppose they need to be, but very cool. You know, to see that, especially like in Brooklyn, which is, you know, as you can imagine, quite congested and densely populated. So to see that, you know, going down your.
Sorry, Steve. Governor's Island. I jumped. My mouth started talking, and I wasn't thinking. But Governor's Island, how far away is that from the Empire State? And we were briefly talking about the new flight restrictions. What are your thoughts on the new flight restrictions?
Wow. I mean, I have to say that, you know, in terms of, you know, not flying over the Statue of Liberty, my impression was that you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway. But, you know, I think I'm probably a little bit more cautious than some. I think it was inevitable in some ways based on some of the activity that we've been seeing, and unfortunate, but you know, in terms of those landmarks and you know, the current activity, yeah, just not surprising. Not thrilled. We like less regulation rather than more, but you know, there you have it. So as far as Governor's Island is an island off the lower, like the lower east side of Manhattan. It's pretty much equidistant, let's say, between Jersey City and Brooklyn, and you've got Liberty Island, Ellis Island, and Liberty Island there as well. So it's interesting. Historically, it was the home of the British governors before independence, and then it was an army base, and then it was actually an army base, a military base, pre-Revolutionary War, and then became a Coast Guard base for quite some time, and then when President Clinton left office, he deemed it a trust and gave the land south of the national park to the mayor's office to manage, and that's why we've gotten such good play, because they're trying to make that a kind of like a tech incubator site.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a ferry to get to an island, so I mean, I think.
Yeah, it's quite frankly, it's a pain in the ass. I mean, it's you know, it's great if you want to take a nice day trip, and there's actually a high school on the island. There's the Harbor School on the island, which does a lot of marine ROV activity. I've actually been there a couple of times to meet with people there, but it's yeah, I mean, it's limiting. It's limiting. I mean, there's you know, ferries run, but the last one is at, you know, at 6 p.m. You got to make sure you're on it. You don't want to be stranded on the island. Yada yada yada. Power is an issue, and you know, that kind of thing. But it is quite far. I mean, as far as how far is it from the Empire State Building?
Sorry, I meant the Statue of Liberty. I mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's the Statue of Liberty's in, you know, I'd have to look at a chart to see, you know, it's not far, but you would have to, you're not meant to fly in the helicopter air route. I'm probably using the wrong terminology. So you're really not meant to fly over the water. And yet we saw folks posting drone vids, you know, following the Staten Island ferry, and you know, that sort of thing, which, you know, is going to definitely raise eyebrows.
I've forgotten the name of the park, but I'd heard of it even from songs, I think, and that's where people were flying from to there and straight across 3 to get to the Statue of Liberty. You would have to fly across 3 of the routes. to get there. And that's, if you look at YouTube,
Yeah.
there's loads of videos of people
Yep.
flying from, what's that part? Battery Park, is it? Would that be right?
Yeah, Battery Park. Yep.
That's it. So yeah, flying across from there, and yeah, you cross 3 routes.
Just a little historical too. Battery Park was built on the landfill from the excavation of the World Trade Center. That's Battery Park is actually like an adjunct, like a tagged on. A lot of Manhattan is like that, actually. They sort of add land.
So there's nothing to do with lipos at all.
No.
Because you'd think you'd go there if you want to fly, you'd definitely go to Battery Park, wouldn't you? I mean,
right, but if you go to Lipo Park,
yeah,
you can hustle up some good 3,300 milliamp 3Ss. You know?
I would have thought that would have been where a fatter person like me could have been made thinner in liposuction park. But anyway,
or covered in flour and water and dipped into hot fat.
yeah. Any of these things.
I said I was fried. I mean, yeah.
Any of these options are available. What was I going to say about? I was going to say something, but obviously it wasn't all that. About flying in the heli routes, and people will say, helicopters are going out of the way. I've flown down the heli routes in London, and you are working like a one-arm paper hanger because you are very, very constrained as to where you can go. And if you go off route very slightly, they get very, very angry with you, and they clear you down to all sorts of low altitudes and other stuff. And you don't have the overhead to be looking out for a phantom to come through the windscreen. And they, well, the Blackhawk thing might show that. And I don't think, did we speak about that, Steve? I can't remember if you've been on since that happened, or probably
the Blackhawk incident. I don't
at the same time, because I've just been amazed by that.
Yeah,
I've been amazed by this sort of community response of it was a military helicopter. It's big and strong. It should have been able to hit it. It's just the wrong attitude. It's against my mithery old man.
Also goes on, or I felt was or undercovered or really not spoken about, was that this was a TFR in effect. So whether the drone was in airspace that it could be in navigably, it should not have been. And so the community sometimes thinks that TFRs are just purely against drones, but it's all private aircraft. It's all it's very the level of education has got to be increased. Yeah.
Well, you say it's all aircraft, and I think you're getting quite a few fixed base operators over there busy going out of business because the number of TFRs they're having to contend with in very busy parts of the country. Other presidents have had taken their vacations a reasonable distance away so that the TFRs weren't as affecting.
It's a bit ironic in that that this region that we speak of is not really pro that guy, so it's a little galling, to especially where I live in New Jersey. There's when he goes to golf, which is often, the TFR is actually, the edge of it is literally like a block away from where my home is. So like I could cross the street and not be flying legally.
We need a drone wall. A drone wall, that'll fix it.
That's it. Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Yep.
Fixes most things. Especially neighbours. If you have terrible neighbours. Good fences make good neighbours. It's just all around the world. People say that, don't they? And funnily enough, building 2 fences makes even better neighbours because, and I've only just learned this, that this is standard here because I just bought another house, and people are, I didn't know, and I said, well, why is there 2 fences? And they said, well, so that neither of you can argue about who's actually responsible for either boundary fence.
There is that. Yeah. I mean, even to the point of trees. Like if a tree is growing on my property, but the branch crosses yours, it can be, you can cut it back if it broaches your property.
Absolutely. So double fences. I didn't know that before. Victor's made another good point. What would a normal civilian who buys a drone at their local big box store even know? Why would they even know what a TFR is? Yeah, and that's true. That is true. And should the manufacturers make sure that the airspace information that they use is correct and well explained? Because even if you put airspace information in or colored boxes, because that's all there'll be to a lot of people, it's just, why is this colored box stopping me fly? It's education's an interesting thing. I don't quite buy the number of the threat though. We've had our incident, the Blackhawk one, which Bruce will tell us is once in 5 years, and X million people around the world have got a drone. So it really is a no number. It's a good data point. But I'll contend that that most things that were bought last Christmas, they're at the bottom of a lake or on the top of a tree now. I'll contend that's where they are. Or just in the box, in the cupboard, because the people are too afraid to use them. I don't know, air mats before you fly out. You want air? Yeah, before you fly is a good app. This is in the comments. So I'll let you gentlemen join in because I have got the rant. It's a ranting trowel. It's a ranting trowel that I have this evening.
Is that some sort of Harry Potter thing, or what is that?
It's my 2-year-old dumping everything on the desk. That's what it is. Comes in and just dumps stuff
dealing with this issue of these people and their ignorance with their little things. One area where the local regulator CAA in New Zealand has got it dead right is in this shielded operation provision, which is something you don't see in other countries. I think they could learn from this, which basically says if you're flying below the level of the trees, then you're not a hazard to aviation. It's a pretty simple thing, isn't it? I mean, if you're flying below the level of trees, which are within 100 meters of where you're flying, then any full-size aircraft that you're endangering has much bigger problems on its plate than your little drone. So that's a sensible thing, because then it means that you can give people the freedom to enjoy their little drone with, as long as you can make it a really simple rule: don't fly higher than the tallest object within 100 meters. Then they know, so long as they do that, they're not going to get into trouble. But when you have this TFRs and all sort of other crap, people just glaze over, and those rules become totally ineffective with the average Joe that's just got himself a drone and flies it once a year.
Yeah, it's hard. Robert says air maps before you fly, apps ? It's quite a good idea to have apps, but the data on those apps must be right. Otherwise, there's no point in having them at all. There really isn't. After we spoke, the others last week really took the rise out of me because I folded and unfolded a map in an inelegant way. And after we stopped speaking, because we're supposed to have gone off air now, so we can almost say that's 7 minutes past. This is our normal nonsense afterwards now. I said that when I fly, quite a big part of the process is sitting down with a map, drawing lines on a map, and getting my head the flight had started the night before. I think a lot of flight instructors will tell you it starts the night before with the planning. And that's, I think, what's partly missing from our world, the drone world, is not taking enough time to think about what you're going to do and consider what's going to happen, especially in the commercial sense. Robert Elliott says, please come to the USA under trees. Awesome. Yes, it is a good role. And Victor, I keep saying Victor because Victor's in the chat. It's not Victor, it's all Stephen. I'm more confused. But Steve, you missed the other cool thing that's been said in New Zealand. They are, but they are in the future. Bruce, maybe you'll repeat that line again that was said in the magazine about and for others that went.
Okay, I just have to call it up again with my bookmarks because here we go. Wait for it to load. Yeah, the New Zealand Civil Aviation has said, and this is a watershed moment, it's important to remember that RPAS pilots have just as much right to use the New Zealand airspace as other aviation participants. That's a really important statement.
Yeah. I like it.
It's a good change of mindset, isn't it? Robert says, I've hover, air map, verify, drone zones, UAV forecast, and Kitty Hawk. the trouble is most of them use
same engine,
the same mapping engine. I
right.
know, and I can't say anything about it because I'm a bugger. I know. There's some exciting news from another, because I was horrified. I made a little video about it. I'm horrified that one of those providers you just named, in fact, said, "Oh, but there's no other SDKs. We can't get our information from anywhere else," and that's a ridiculous reason for using data that is often wrong. And in this case, we're talking about AirMap. They're not on your side. They're not on your side, basically. So
it's in their best interest for it to be complex.
Yeah, absolutely.
And confounding, so that you see the value in what they aggregate for you. But it doesn't need to be that way.
No, it doesn't need to be that way, and it also needs, whatever it is, it needs to be accurate. And their stuff is wildly inaccurate, and that's why you'll see in the manned world, you'll see people ring different weather units to get a different forecast, and they'll keep ringing weather units until they hear the weather they want to hear, so they can go flying. Might not be the safest thing to do, but I've seen loads of people do that. And in our world, people seem to flip between the apps until they find the app that has the least restricted airspace on it, which could mean very out of date. And then, oh yeah, that's right, I'm using this information. But the trouble is, the FAA will come after you based on the chart, and that is the bottom line, and that's updated. I don't know whatever sequence it is. And it's your right or your responsibility as a pilot. Who shoulders the responsibility of updating apps? Exactly, that's exactly right. Above and beyond, who shoulders the responsibilities of updating apps other than before you fly? And yeah, because before you fly is the definitive app. I think yes, you have got one in New Zealand. There's one in the UK. And I mean by that, I mean official ones. There's an official one in the UK, official one in Australia, and
what is
is
before you fly? I mean, I use before you fly. I mean, people decry it. I tend to use
sectional. It's official.
It's
That's
official,
the official one.
Right. But I tend to use the sectional, and then go from there. Sort of sky vector kind of stuff. But so yeah, what I was wondering was the before you fly is that updated by FAA or
it is? It is.
It is.
It is, right. And it also should be on the 30-day, was it 29 or 30-day AIRAC update cycle, which is the standard ICAO update cycle for aviation information. So obviously it can't be, other than TFRs and stuff that pop up, it can't be too
out of date.
It's hard to do. It's hard to be super up to date, and the paper charts, they'll send out amendments if you subscribe to paper chart service. But you're lucky in America that all your charts, again, when the guy said that there's no SDK for it and where are we going to get the information for our apps, is you're very lucky in America. It's all open source and available. The FAA's done it. You've just got to have the announce to turn it into something useful on your app. And I know there's another subscriber coming now. What's wrong with I use before you flies or the well, they have too many circles, but that's exactly the point. that's the definitive. Sadly, Robert, that's exactly the point. That they have the definitive information, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. And then as a community, and perhaps this is where the Doug can come in. No, Doug, that was wrong. I got that wrong, man. But anyway, because I think you have a lot of helipads and a lot of other stuff and a lot of airfields that were used in the 30s, and some part of town's been built on it since, and they're still in the system. So there does need to be some work going. So what needs to happen is, the community needs to talk to the map people and say, well, here's some adjustments to make, and then that would come right. But that would be the one to adjust, not any one of the private entities that are out there wanting to make a buck out of you. The one to make sure it's right is the official one. I stand down, I put down the rant trowel. I'll hand over to whoever wishes to pick up on that.
Well, gents, I've got a jet. I've got to go.
Yeah, that's good. And so have we, because we're 13 minutes past. But that's a very cool way of doing it. I've got a jet. It's very good. And I believe that you would, Steve. I believe there's a Gulf Stream just outside your door, and
I've
you
got to
can
go.
open
I've got
the
to go get
door.
my white cat. Remember my white cat?
Yeah. Well,
All right.
thanks very much for joining us, Steve.
Pleasure.
And,
Take care, Bruce.
I think we'll.
Yep.
Cheers, mate.
See you later, mate.
And dear viewers, thank you very much. I think we need to talk to this subject again, about the apps. It's definitely lit up the comments a little bit, so we need to talk to this subject. And my opinions may not be correct.
Can I get one for my abacus?
You can get one for your abacus, yeah. Oh,
and my state-of-the-art phone.
Well, I've still got a whiz wheel somewhere, which is,
circular side roll.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Hasn't everybody? Everyone's got one of those.
I understand the young folks don't anymore. But I know. I showed a lad that's a CPL. I showed him a whiz wheel, and he's like, "You did what with that? What's that for?" It's madness. I say madness. I'll never catch on. And if there is a big war, my whiz wheel will still work. Shouldn't have said that, should I? All right, Bruce. I should get you to do this ending thing. We're supposed to do like, subscribe, all the other things. Thanks, Bruce. Bruce, what's on your table at the moment?
Pen. That's about it. No, it's mightier than the sword. But no, busy week. Usual stuff. Nothing new.
I need to get a big sword now, don't I? Prove it. Go on, prove it. Demonstrate your point. All right, mate. Thanks very much. I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Dear viewer, several dear viewers, thanks very much. And Jamie, Jamie's asking you, where's the post-jet mini?
It's in the workshop, just waiting for some slightly warmer weather so that I can do some more flying.
Oh, yeah. Has it actually flown yet, though?
Well, define fly. Do you mean travel through the air before impacting the ground? Yes, it has flown.
Oh, yeah. All right, then it's flown.
Only this long. But no, there's some modifications have been made, and it will be ready to fly again when the sun comes out.
So you haven't melted the back off it yet?
No, mate. So structurally engineered.
Structurally engineered. There's not been any big modifications or anything like that?
No, but I have to update my log because it is over 1 kg and it's made of foam.
Yes. Well, yes. All right. Well, we look forward to that. Again, I'll say it, I think, for the third time. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll do this again at 2100 GMT next Tuesday. If there's any news or anything that you see and you'd like us to talk about, or you'd like to come on and talk about it, then please email me, Gary@susnews.com. I am going to get you on, Jamie, and you're going to tell us about your rockets. And see you all next week. Cheer, everyone. Bye-bye.